They called them temples, but what if the holiest places in Egypt hid crimes no one dared to speak of? Behind the gold and marble, where hymns rose to the heavens, something darker stirred a system that worshipped power more than gods. Before we uncover it, please remember this is a small channel dedicated to giving voice to forgotten stories. So if history's hidden side matters to you, hit subscribe, like, and share. It helps more than you know. The story begins in the spring heat of 1200 BC in the courtyard of Karnak, where a girl named Nefertari knelt beneath a white sun that baked the stones like fire. Incense curled through the air as 3 priests circled her, bronze razors flashing. One by one, her long black strands drifted to the ground like dead feathers. The priests called it purification, but her father, watching from the shadows, knew it was sacrifice. The gods demanded her beauty, her voice, her childhood, everything that made her human. The temple did not give gifts, it took them. Egypt's temples were not mere houses of prayer, but vast engines of wealth and obedience. They owned the fields, the workers, the water itself. The high priest's word could move armies or destroy families. And when a man could not repay his debt, the temple offered mercy. Give your daughter to the gods, and your sins will be forgiven. It sounded holy. It was slavery wrapped in linen. Girls like Nefertari were called pure, sacred, chosen. Yet their only sin was being born into poverty. Once inside the walls, they vanished from every record. No names, no ages, only tallies of linen woven, grain ground, oil burned. The temple shone like paradise to the world outside. But within, the air was thick with silence and tears. Priests preached that obedience was divine, and the people believed it, for questioning cruelty meant questioning heaven itself. Please take a second to subscribe, like, and share this story. Small channels like ours survive only when you help the forgotten be heard. Inside Karnak's inner court, Nefertari's initiation began before dawn. The doors closed behind her, echoing like a tomb. She was led to a stone pool where torches shimmered on the surface. 5 figures waited, 3 priests, 2 women. Remove your garments, one said. When she hesitated, a slap followed. Cold hands bathed her in scented water, murmuring prayers to Amun. But what they called cleansing was control. When her body trembled, they whispered, "Be still, the gods are watching." The ceremony stripped her of everything, even her name. She became Nefert Nebet, beautiful is the lady. Identity was erased, replaced by obedience. Across the Nile, in the Temple of Mut, another girl arrived from Nubia. Her name was Mutamuya, taken as tribute from a starving village. She didn't understand the priest's words as they shaved her head and renamed her Hand of the Goddess. The water was cold, the chants endless. What they called rebirth was really ownership. Life in the temple followed a rhythm so precise it killed the soul. The women rose before dawn, washed in silence, dressed in linen, and labored from sunup to sunset. Their songs praised the gods, but had long been rewritten. To serve is joy, to obey is peace. Friendship was forbidden, tears were punished, even kindness became a sin. One older priestess, Tayat, had served the temple for decades. She had once believed in its holiness. Now, every chant tasted like ash. She saw the girls' hollow eyes, their broken postures, and began to wonder if the gods had ever spoken at all. Yet resistance sometimes hides in silence. One evening, as Nefertari wove linen for offerings, she noticed a tiny pattern stitched into the threads, an eye crossed by a line. It meant, "I see." It was the first time she realized rebellion could whisper instead of scream. But the temple's greatest cruelty came disguised as holiness, the sacred union, a ritual said to renew Egypt's life. In truth, it was the night the high priest claimed the girl's innocence in the name of the gods. The halls were filled with incense, music, and lies. Nefertari was only 14 when her turn came. They dressed her in silk linen and gold, telling her Amun himself would bless her. But the god who touched her was only a man behind a mask. When his hand brushed her face, she felt the truth, colder than any water divinity was. Their disguise, desire, their motive. Far away, Mutamuya endured the same ritual beneath the statue of the goddess of motherhood, the cruelest irony of all. When it ended, both girls returned silent, their faith extinguished. The priests wrote that the gods were pleased. History wrote nothing, but Tayet watched. For years, she obeyed. That night, she broke. She stole scraps of papyrus and ink and began to write what she had seen, the lies, the rituals, the taking of girls in the name of light. She hid her writings beneath the temple stones, whispering, "Let the earth remember if heaven won't." Months turned into years. Nefertari grew older, her body changing. The priests called it the god's blessing, but Tayat saw the truth. She was pregnant. The child was born in secret, a little girl with her mother's eyes. For 3 short years, Nefertari held her close until the priest came again. "She is chosen," they said. "The god will guide her." Nefertari tried to protest, but her voice, once beautiful, was gone. They took the child away, and she never sang again. She returned to her weaving, each thread a memory she could not speak. Sometimes she glimpsed her daughter in the courtyards, small, shaven, dressed in white, walking the same path she once had. Their eyes met once, then never again. Across the river, Mutamuya's story mirrored hers. Her daughter born, taken, renamed, erased. The temples called it divine order. She called it repetition. Pain became routine, and routine became faith. Tayet wrote once more, "When pain stops shocking, oppression has won." She hid those words inside a priest's robe, knowing someday truth might find a way to speak. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share, not for numbers, but because small voices need help to echo against centuries of silence. One day, a woman named Ranudma refused to kneel. She had served the temple for 20 years, her voice once prized for hymns, but age had burned away fear. During the midday meal, she rose and said, "These men are not gods. They feed on our bodies and call it holiness." Her words thundered through the hall. The high priest didn't argue, he simply raised his hand. Guards dragged her away to the desert, the punishment for blasphemy. Tayet followed at a distance, hiding a reed pen and papyrus in her sleeve. Before the sun claimed her, Ranutma whispered, "Tell them the gods do not speak to those who cannot hear suffering." Tayet wrote the words, pressing so hard the papyrus tore. 3 days later, the women were forced to see her body, half buried in sand. The priest declared, "This is the fate of the impure," but Tai knew better. The desert swallowed her, but not her truth. That defiance lived on, whispered from one loom to another. The women began to weave symbols of resistance. Loose threads, hidden knots, small marks carved under altars. I existed. I was born free. They couldn't fight with weapons, so they fought with memory. Mutamuya, now old, returned one night to a storage chamber beneath the temple. With a pottery shard and a piece of bronze, she carved her final message into the wall. "I came from beyond the first waterfall. My mother's name was Mandori. I remember her song. This life was not my choice. If you find this, know that I lived." When Tayat found it, tears filled her tired eyes. That night, she gathered all her secret writings, Nefertari's sorrow, Mutamuya's strength, Ranutma's defiance, and sealed them beneath the stone floor, whispering, "If the gods are silent, let the earth speak." Centuries passed. The desert buried the temples, sand swallowing stone. But stone remembers what man forgets. When archaeologists uncovered the ruins of Karnak, They found fragments of papyrus and faint carvings, the testimony of the silent. The ink had faded, but the words survived. The god took nothing, only men did. For the first time in 3,000 years, their voices spoke again. Tourists now walk those same courtyards, cameras raised, smiling beneath the same pillars where Nefertari once knelt. They see beauty, not bondage. They hear glory, not grief. The guides speak of gods and dynasties, but none mention the women who served, suffered, and vanished. Every empire builds monuments, but few remember the bones beneath them. We call this civilization, but history whispers otherwise. Wherever faith turns to fear and obedience to profit, the story repeats. The names change, the robes change, the gods change, but the silence remains the same. The true message of Egypt's temples isn't carved in stone. It's written in what was erased. If you stand there long enough, beneath the echoes of tourists and wind, you can still hear it. The rhythm of looms, the faint breath of 1,000 whispers saying, I existed. The gods may be silent, but their servants are not. Their stories survived the sand, the centuries, and the silence, and reached you. So before you leave, please subscribe, like, and share this story. This is a small channel, but every gesture helps bring light to the lives buried beneath history's gold. Because remembrance is the only prayer the dead can still receive. And now you are their witness.